I want to thank everyone for joining us for this call, this webinar. Thankful. I know this is a busy week for a lot of folks with Thanksgiving and travel planning and everything like that. So we're very excited to see so many of you join us, and I know we're going to have a few more that are going to join as we continue to get started here. But I'm Dan Darling. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications for the National Religious Broadcasters. And just grateful to partner on this webinar with the Israeli Ministry of Tourism and the City of David. I personally have been to Israel 4 times. I've loved it every single time I've gone, and in fact, I wish I could go every year. And so me and our family, we love Israel, and I was excited to be able to do this. There's a few things that we want to talk about on this webinar. First, I know many of you have questions about traveling to Israel and when that will open up again, and some of those things that I'm sure you're eager to have questions about. Others of you, and then I know all of you are very, very eager to hear about the City of David, and we're glad to have Zev Orenstein on from the City of David to talk about that as well. I want to mention, as Sebastian mentioned, that we are very excited about our convention in March 16th through the 18th in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's at the Gaylord Texan there, and we've been working pretty closely with Marriott and the Gaylord there specifically to have a safe in-person meeting. We feel very confident that we can do this. They have put in place a lot of really good and smart protocols. They have big, wide open spaces, good ventilation, and all those things. And so we feel very good. They're actually hosting events currently, and there's more that are going to be happening. So we feel very good about this, obviously. And it's a good opportunity to come to NRB to meet our friends from the Israeli Ministry of Tourism. And if you're someone who is liking to plan a trip to Israel in 2021 or 2022. It's great to be able to meet with them and meet with other tour operators to really think through what this looks like for you. And they will be there on hand to meet with you. Also, NRB, as you know, is just a great opportunity to network. If you're a Christian communicator of any kind, whether it's radio and TV or film or digital, or you're in the content creation business or ministry, or if you're in church media, it's really a great place to come, and we want to encourage you. So you can register today. The early bird season is still open. So you go to nrbconvention.org. Well, I don't want to take up all the time. I want to hand it over to our guests at the Israeli Ministry of Tourism and the City of David. And at this point, I would love to first kind of kick it off to Eyal here from the Israeli Ministry of Tourism, Eyal Karlin, who can kind of give us an update a little bit about kind of where Israel is during these times, and kind of in terms of what you think in terms of travel to Israel and any updates that you might have.
All right, thank you, Dan, and job well done with saying my name. It's sometimes interesting to hear how it's pronounced by different people, but you pronounce it like an Israeli.
Well, the y'all part made it easy for me, so.
All right. Well, thank you, and again, thank you, NRB, and thank you, Dan, for letting us have this opportunity, and thank you for everybody who's joining. I'll just give a brief update about what's happening in Israel. Israel is going out of its second wave. We're in the phased reopening of the market, and we are hopefully. I mean, we're starting the reopening of domestic travel to Israel, and like all the world, we're also very hopeful about the vaccine and the improved testing opportunities to help us open the market in 2021 to international travel. We do have a pilot running right now of allowing business travel for a limited amount of time in Israel, also from red countries, so also from the US, and that is currently happening. It was just kicked off last week. And so we are preparing ourselves in terms of the procedures to allow safe travel to Israel. And also we did have a very busy summer with domestic travel in Israel. People were all over the country and are now resuming that. So, the different attractions, the City of David, for instance, all the national parks, the museums, the hotels, they're all well practiced in having in enabling travelers and tourists to come and be safe and practice social distancing, and are very aware of everybody's concerns and are accommodating all of that. So definitely once Israel does open up, and we're hoping that it will be towards the end of the first quarter, we are estimating right now, we don't have any definite date, but we're estimating and hoping that somewhere around Passover we'll be in that situation to open. But obviously we will update if we have anything different before or after. Before, obviously. But once that is done, you can be assured that when you come to Israel, you are going to have an incredible, inspiring, and also safe and healthy experience in Israel. This over here is, one of my favorite things, one of my favorite things about being involved with tourism to Israel is the connection to the Bible. The Bible is a book that is filled with people, with places, with cultures, and these people, places, and cultures existed, and still, these places do exist, and they exist in Israel. And to fully appreciate the Bible and to fully be inspired and to have your faith reinforced, Israel and visiting Israel is key to that. And so, we want to, obviously this is a substitute to traveling to Israel. We do want everybody to come to Israel. There is a silver lining of this pandemic, and I guess there is some kind of a greater plan, that this pandemic forced us to be better in giving access to Israel and to its places, and these sorts of webinars and virtual tours is something that we're going to be carrying on also after the pandemic is over, because it's a great way to educate and to get people prepared and enthusiastic about it. And we have, in addition to this, we're working on a whole gamut of different webinar opportunities. And so all of you here that are on this webinar from media outlets, we encourage you to be in touch with us, and we would love to create these kinds of platforms to your audiences as well, and to bring some of the best places and speakers in Israel and to communicate to your audiences, keep them excited about Israel. All right, so Zev, kicking it off to you now.
Hey. So first, thank you to Israel's Ministry of Tourism and NRB for having the City of David tonight, or today, where you are. And first, I want to begin with a story of providence, because as you have this nice Band-Aid over my eye, and that Band-Aid, at least to me, is a sign of providence. And I will explain what I mean by that. Let me put my screen up over here. And this story of providence begins last week, around this time, where I started to feel a tingling around my eye. Didn't really know what it was, didn't really think much about it. And, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, tingling is still there. Wednesday, it's still there. The reason I wasn't thinking much about it was because this past week for the City of David was a bit of a historic week, because we had the privilege of hosting for the first time at the City of David a United States Secretary of State, in this case, Secretary Mike Pompeo with his wife, together with U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman. And so they came this past Wednesday night to visit the City of David. It was a big honor, very exciting. And so I wasn't really thinking so much about the tingling around my eye. The following day, I have a meeting with some other administration officials at the King David Hotel. So I'm still not really thinking much about the tingling. About an hour or two after that meeting ends on Thursday afternoon, I go home and my eye begins to swell up. And it turns out I had a sty on my eye, and my eye basically was swollen shut to the point where Sunday I emailed the good people at NRB and Israel's Ministry of Tourism to tell them that my eye is basically not in great shape, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to present. Now, where does providence come in? First, I thought after the fact, I said, wow, if my sty would have come out a day before, I couldn't have hosted Secretary Pompeo and had the other meetings. And on Sunday, I was getting nervous that I wouldn't be able to present to all of you today. And then sure enough, yesterday, things started to get better. And so the lesson I took from all of this is that we have a tradition in our faith, which is when someone is doing the work of God, they are protected. And what that meant to me was last week when I was preparing to host the Secretary of State and the meetings afterwards, God said, I'm going to hold off on giving you this sty until after you finish the work for Jerusalem. Friday, Shabbat, Sunday, I guess I wasn't doing anything overly important. And so the sty was in full effect. But then this webinar was coming up, and I guess God said, all right, we need you to be presentable for that. And so he took the sty largely away. So at least for me, it was a moment of providence where I'm grateful for being able to get to do what I do without too much difficulty from the sty anymore. So I guess my healing is in your merit. So thank you for that. Now, on that note, let's segue to what we all want to talk about, which is the city of David. Now, up until 150 years ago, when people thought about where is the original biblical city of Jerusalem, the city of King David, of King Solomon, prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah, and there was one answer, and the answer is what you can see in front of you over here. You can see basically the old city of Jerusalem. So here's the Temple Mount, the biblical Mount Moriah. Here's the Western Wall right over here. You can see the old city walls surrounding the old city of the Church of Holy Sepulchre and the Garden Tomb, the Mount of Olives over here to the right side of the screen. And up until 150 years ago, everyone believes that the original biblical city of Jerusalem, the city of David, is located inside the walls of the old city. That will only change in 1867 when Queen Victoria of England wants to discover the treasures of the Bible, like the Ark of the Covenant. And so she sends a man by the name of Captain Charles Warren to find those treasures. And he comes to the Holy Land. And if you're going to search one place in the Holy Land for the treasures of the Bible, you'll come to Jerusalem. And so he comes to Jerusalem and he goes up to excavate the Temple Mount, the biblical Mount Moriah. Except in 1867, the Ottomans are ruling the area and they say, Charles, we're sure you are a great guy, but you're not going to dig up the Temple Mount. And now Charles Warren has a problem because that's the place to search, the Temple Mount. That's the site. If you look today, you could see to the south, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the #3 holy site for Islam, the Golden Dome of the Rock, which is also a significant Islamic shrine. But that is the site where the Temple of Solomon stood, the first temple for over 400 years. And then after that was dating back to the concluding period of the time of Jesus. And so Charles Warren is like, this is the place to dig. And they said, you can't dig there. And to this day, due to religious sensitivities, political sensitivities, there's been virtually no archaeological activity on the Temple Mount. So Charles Warren says, if I can't dig on the Temple Mount, on Mount Moriah, what am I going to do? He says, I'll do the next best thing, which is to excavate near it. So what he does is he comes down the slopes of Mount Moriah, of the Temple Mount, and he's walking through the Kidron Valley just to the east over here. And as he's walking, he comes across this ancient spring, the Gihon Spring, mentioned in the Bible and flowing from biblical times all the way to the present day when it's still flowing. For any of you who may have visited the city of David in the past, you may have walked through an ancient water tunnel known as Hezekiah's water tunnel. Well, Charles Warren didn't know what Hezekiah's water tunnel was, but what he did see was there was an ancient spring flowing through a man-made tunnel dating back thousands of years. And he didn't know where this tunnel led, who engineered it. And so he begins to walk through this tunnel and he's carrying a torch because it's totally dark. And as he's walking through the tunnel, the flame of the torch begins to flicker wildly. He looks above his head. He sees there's a shaft going up into the mountain. He's curious, where does the shaft lead? He climbs up the shaft and he finds himself in a network of tunnels and fortifications with antiquities, fancy word for old stuff, dating back thousands of years. And he comes up with a theory. He says that he believes that the original biblical city of Jerusalem, the city of David, the place where Jerusalem began, is not up here in the old city. Whoever thinks that, he says, all the people who thought that, they're wrong. He says, I believe that the original biblical city of Jerusalem, the city of David, is located not inside the walls of the old city, but located just outside the walls of the old city, right over here to the south of the Temple Mount, adjacent to the Western Wall. Except the only problem is, when he announces this theory to the world, everyone says, Charles, you are crazy. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Now, if you want to know why Charles Warren was so confident that this was the place, you'll have to come for a tour in person of the city of David, and I'll be happy to elaborate on the theories that Charles Warren had. But he was very confident, even though no one else was. And he says, if you want to find the original Jerusalem, the biblical Jerusalem, this is the place to excavate. They said he was crazy for good reason, because this is what the city of David looks like even a century ago. There's nothing there. They say, Charles, you're telling us that this barren 11-acre ridge, this is the Jerusalem that has significance to billions of people around the world, to Christians, to Muslims, to Jews. There's nothing here. It has to be the old city. And Charles Warren says, I'm telling you, this is the place. And over the next 150 years, the city of David will become one of the most archaeologically excavated sites in the world, the most excavated site in Israel. And it turns out that Charles Warren was in fact correct, that British, French, German, Irish, American, and Israeli archaeologists have all determined, based on more than 20 archaeological excavations that have taken place on the 11-acre ridge of the city of David, that the original biblical city of Jerusalem, the city of David, is located just outside the walls of the old city. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. Then what's the old city of Jerusalem? Every time I visited Israel, I've gone to the old city. I thought that was the Jerusalem of the Bible. So in a word, what is the old city of Jerusalem? It is uptown Jerusalem. So if you look in this image over here, this is Jerusalem from 3,000 years ago. 3,000 years ago is, of course, King David. So here's the city of David 3,000 years ago. Here is Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount. There's nothing going on over there yet. Here is what would be the old city today. Also nothing happening over there. Now, of course, after David is Solomon. Solomon will expand Jerusalem, expand the city of David northward to build the temple. So here you can see the Temple of Solomon on Mount Moriah. Here is the old city. It still doesn't really exist yet. Now, if we fast forward 1,000 years after David and Solomon to the time of Jesus, here you could see Jerusalem. Here is the city of David, just over here to the south. Here is the temple during Herod's time, the time of Jesus. And here is more or less what we would know as the old city today. So how did Jerusalem, the city of David, expand from this little 11-acre ridge to what we have 1,000 years later in the time of Jesus? Well, all I'll say about that is water. Water was the secret to why the city of David was established where it was, at least in part. And water is the answer to how it grew into the city that we all know today. Exactly what the connection is between water and David and Herod and Jesus, well, come for a tour and we'll go a little bit more in depth. But what I want to share with you right now is something incredible that is changing the way how people are connecting to Jerusalem now and for generations to come. And that story goes back to the year 2004. And in 2004, southern end of the city of David, there's a road. And beneath the road, there is a sewage pipe. And the sewage pipe ruptures. And now there's a big mess. So the municipality of Jerusalem has to send in construction crews, bulldozers, dump trucks to repair the sewage pipe. But Jerusalem is not just another municipality. And the city of David is not just another part of Jerusalem. When a sewage pipe ruptures in the city of David, in the heart of the Holy Basin, in the area of Jerusalem, where all the sites with religious and historic significance to Jews and Christians can be found, when a sewage pipe ruptures over here, you don't only send in construction crews, you also send in archaeologists. And so the archaeologists are overseeing the repair work. And they begin to hear scraping and scratching. It doesn't sound right. So they clear everyone out. And it turns out that in repairing the sewage pipe, they make an incredible discovery. And that is a series of ancient stone steps, 2,000 years old, steps dating back to the time of Jesus. And they say, wait a minute, there's only one other set of steps in Jerusalem that look just like these. And these are the steps, maybe they look familiar to you. These are the steps leading up to the southern ascent of the Temple Mount, the southern steps with deep significance to Jews and Christians alike. If you look over here, these are the steps we're talking about here 2,000 years ago, the southern steps leading up into the Herodian temple 2,000 years ago. So then the archaeologists asked, what are these steps over here? And they realized that they had found the steps leading down to the ancient pool of Siloam. Now, the pool of Siloam, again, has deep significance to Jews and Christians alike. If we start with the Christian scriptures, the story of the healing of the blind man is noted as having taken place in the pool of Siloam in the city of David. The Bible recounts that there are 3 times during the year, Passover, the Festival of Weeks or Pentecost, and Tabernacles, when all of Israel would have to go up to the temple. The historian Josephus says that during those pilgrimage festivals, you would have had nearly 3 million people going up on pilgrimage, say on Passover. Now, that's a lot of people. Now, why do they have to go? What do they have to do before they can go up to the temple? Well, they have to immerse, they have to wash, bathe, cleanse themselves. The pool of Siloam was a giant mikvah, or a ritual bath to accommodate the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who were cleansing themselves before ascending to the temple on pilgrimage, which then led the archaeologists to say, wait a minute, if we know where the pool of Siloam is at the very southern end of the city of David, and we know where the temple stood on the Temple Mount, about a half mile north from there, how did all the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pilgrims get from the pool all the way up to the temple? And so the archaeologists, they widen the excavation. And what do they find? They find the Pilgrimage Road. They find the road that our ancestors, yours and mine, 2,000 years ago, this is the road that our ancestors walked on when they went on pilgrimage up from the pool of Siloam to the temple. Not a road that looks like this one, not stones that are similar to these. This road, these stones. These are the stones as they were found by the archaeologists, not where they said, well, maybe this stone will look good over here, so let's put that over here. This is the actual pilgrimage road as it's been discovered and uncovered by archaeologists literally as we speak. The Pilgrimage Road excavation is being excavated, as we say in this country, 24/6, not 7, 24/6. Now, the excavation itself is about 60 feet underground. One of the challenges of Jerusalem today, of modern Jerusalem, is that beneath modern Jerusalem, certainly in the area of the Holy Basin, of the Old City, of the city of David, is that you have the modern city sitting atop the ancient one. And the challenge is, how do you, on the one hand, preserve the modern, respect the people who live in the modern day Jerusalem, while at the same time uncovering the ancient Jerusalem that has significance to billions of people. And so you can see here the arches, the supports that are supporting this excavation that are allowing the modern neighborhood of the city of David to exist and flourish while at the same time uncovering the ancient. So what you are looking at here is the biblical superhighway. In biblical times, this is the road that if you wanted to get somewhere in Jerusalem of significance, this is the road that was going to take you there. Now, along the road, we find something fascinating, which is this. It's the only one of its kind found in Jerusalem, and it's found along the Pilgrimage Road. Now, what is this? This is an ancient podium, 2,000 years old, the only one of its kind found in Jerusalem so far. Now, imagine 2,000 years ago, someone who had a message to share with the masses, a political message, an ethical message, a religious message that they wanted to preach with the masses. Where would they go? They would go to the Pilgrimage Road. Now, keep in mind, the road itself is about 5 or 6 times wider than what you can see here. What the archaeologists are doing right now is a north-south excavation to connect the pool to the footsteps of the Temple Mount, to the western wall, to the southern steps. And once that's completed, God willing, in about 4 years or so, then the archaeologists will go east-west to uncover the full length of the Pilgrimage Road. And so almost certainly archaeologists believe along the length of the road, we'll find more of these podium. But this is the only one we found so far. Now, I was asked not long ago when I hosted a US senator, and he asked me, he said, what are the chances that Jesus walked on this road? And I said, listen, Senator, I don't want to tell you stories. Let me give you a conservative estimate. The likelihood that Jesus walked on this road is 100%. He says, how do you know? How can you be so sure? I said, well, Senator, if you believe that 2,000 years ago there was a historic Jesus, then he was in Jerusalem and he was Jewish. He would have gone with all the other Jews at that time, 2,000 years ago, to cleanse, to wash, to bathe in the pool of Siloam. He would then have walked up the pilgrimage road through the city of David, all the way up to the temple on the Temple Mount. The pool of Siloam that we've discovered in the city of David is 100% the pool of Siloam. The pilgrimage road that's being excavated as we speak in the city of David is 100% the pilgrimage road. And the Temple Mount is, of course, the Temple Mount. It is all 100%. This area stretching from the pool of Siloam all the way up through the city of David to the footsteps of the Temple Mount is, I believe, the most significant half mile on the planet. I do not believe there is another half mile anywhere in the world that has more significance to more people than the half mile stretching from the southern tip of the city of David at the pool of Siloam up through the pilgrimage road in the city of David to the Temple Mount. It is the most significant half mile in the world. Now, when you think of some of the great wonders of the world, you might think of the pyramids in Egypt, you might think of the Colosseum in Rome. Well, I believe that the pilgrimage road that's being excavated in the city of David today not only belongs in that same conversation, but in fact also is in a category all of its own. And I'll tell you why. Maybe some of you have visited the pyramids in Egypt. And when you go there, you say, wow, look at the might of the pharaohs. Look at what was possible. The pyramids 4,000 years ago, incredible. But then you ask yourself, where's the great Egyptian civilization today? Where are the pharaohs? And the answer is simple: in museums, history books, with some monuments left behind. Then you go to Rome, to the Colosseum, and you say, wow, look at the might, the prestige of the great Roman Empire. And you look at the Colosseum, you say, wow. And then you ask yourself, where is the great Roman Empire today? And you say also, in museums, in history books, with some monuments left behind. And then you come to Jerusalem. You come to the city of David. You come to the pilgrimage road, not yet open to the public, but when NRB brings a special group, we will make sure you guys get access to see it. You come to the pilgrimage road. And this is not just a piece of history where 2,000 years ago, some amazing things happened, because the people who walked on that road 2,000 years ago, it is their very same descendants who are going to walk on that road in just a short while. The same people worshiping the same God with the same languages, customs, traditions, festivals, literally walking in the footsteps of their ancestors, in the footsteps of the Bible. This is not just a piece of history. This is a continuation of a story, our story, your story, my story, a story that has been told for thousands of years, and a story that is not finished yet. You can't put this in a museum, because museums are really only for places, for civilizations that have finished. This story, our shared heritage in Jerusalem, it's not finished yet. Now, there's something else about the pilgrimage road which is very special, because when you're in the place where the Bible happened, the words of the Bible come to life. And I want to give you one example of that as it relates to the pilgrimage road. Some of the most famous chapters of Psalms are from 120 to 134, where each of those chapters starts off with the words, a song of ascent. Now, the way we traditionally understand, what does that mean, a song of ascent? We understand that it's talking about a spiritual ascent, going to the holiest place in the world. And so as you're saying these chapters of the Psalms, you are connecting with the holiest place in the world, which is true. But when you're in the place where the Bible happened, the words of the Bible come to life in a more physical and literal way as well. Because when someone is going on pilgrimage up to the temple, atop the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, most of those people would have first purified themselves in the Pool of Siloam. To get to the temple from the Pool of Siloam, you have to schlep. If you're not familiar with that word, it's a good word to know. Schlep, you have to go uphill a half mile from the pool all the way up to the footsteps of the Temple Mount along the Pilgrimage Road. That is a half-mile trek. And as you're going up that half mile, aside from doing some shopping, passing some shops along the way on the Pilgrimage Road, you're going to be saying those songs of ascent, because those songs of ascent are not just a spiritual description of the pilgrimage experience, but it is a physical, literal description that you were literally going up. It was a song of ascent that you were literally going up to the temple, not only spiritually, but also physically. Now, it's the kind of thing that when you're I grew up in New Jersey, and when I studied Bible in New Jersey, you don't get that feeling. When you're maybe in Tennessee or Texas or wherever, you also don't necessarily have that appreciation. But when you come and you visit Israel and you walk through the sites with significance in the Bible and you read the Bible in those places, you say, wait a minute, the reason why the Bible chose those words and those descriptions is because it is an accurate description of the places where those events happen. I'll give you one other one. In Psalm 125, King David, Jerusalem is a city surrounded by mountains. Now, why does he choose those words to describe Jerusalem? Well, if you've been to the city of David and you look north from where David would have been standing, you see Mount Moriah. If you look to the east, you see the Mount of Olives. If you look to the south, you see the ridge of Armon HaNetziv. And you look to the west, you see what is known today as Mount Zion. Now, you might say, what's the big deal? Okay, everyone knows Jerusalem is surrounded by mountains. But it's only over the last century plus of archaeological excavation, where today we know the true location of the city of David, that the words of King David, that the words of the Bible come to life. Because as long as everyone thought that the city of David was in the old city, the words of King David were like poetry, sound beautiful, but don't mean a whole lot. It's only that today where we know where the city of David, the place where Jerusalem began, is located, that the words of King David come to life. The reason why he describes Jerusalem as a city surrounded by mountains is because that's exactly what it is. Now, I want to show you as we wrap up something discovered along the Pilgrimage Road. Now, if you look closely at your screen over here, you could see a coin embedded onto the flagstones of the Pilgrimage Road. Now, this coin melted in the fires that burned Jerusalem in the year 70, in the Roman fires that destroyed Jerusalem. This coin was dropped by one of the last Jews of Jerusalem at that time as they were running for their lives, and it literally melted onto the flagstones. And yet scholars have long wondered, why were Jews minting coins at this time? And I want to show you one such coin that you can see over here. This is a coin that dates back, identical to the one you see that's on the Pilgrimage Road. This coin dates back to the period of the Great Revolt. The Great Revolt from 66 to 70, when the Jews of Jerusalem were fighting against the Roman occupation of Jerusalem, of Judea, which was the name of the country at that time. Now, each year of the revolt, they would put the year on it. This is a year 2 coin corresponding to the year 67 of the Common Era. And on the other side of the coin, it says in ancient Hebrew writing, for the freedom of Zion, for the freedom of Jerusalem. Now, why are they minting coins like this one? So I want to share with you an answer that I heard to that question. And the answer is that the Jews of Jerusalem at that time understood that Jerusalem was likely going to be destroyed. But instead of making weapons or more weapons, they said they wanted to mint these coins as a hope, a prayer, a dream, that one day in the future, their descendants would return as sovereign to Jerusalem and know what their ancestors lived and died for a free Jerusalem. Now, the people who minted these coins probably thought it would be a few decades, maybe a century before their descendants would return as sovereign. They couldn't imagine it would be nearly 2,000 years. But eventually we did return. And today, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. And it is a free Jerusalem, a Jerusalem that is open to people of all faiths and backgrounds to come and connect with their heritage, literally to walk in the footsteps of the Bible. And I want to end with one last story. This is my daughter, Hodaya. And a couple of years ago, we went to visit a stone that you can see here. It's right at the southern end of the Temple Mount by Robinson's Arch. It's actually the continuation of the Pilgrims Road. And I asked my daughter, it's a 2,000-year-old stone. I asked her if she knew what was written on this stone. And she looked at the stone and she said, Abba, Dad, it says Lebeit Hatkiah, to the trumpeter's house. Now, what does that mean, the trumpeter's house? Well, 2,000 years ago, before the Sabbath would come in, you would have a priest up on the Temple Mount blowing the trumpet to tell all the people down below who were doing their shopping to close their shops, to go home and get ready to accept the Sabbath. Now, when my daughter read this to me, I was proud, not only that she was able to read, but I thought to myself, how many peoples can go back 2,000 years and read the writing of their ancestors, speak the same language as their ancestors, worship the same God as their ancestors, have the same customs, traditions, festivals as their ancestors did thousands of years ago? And I told my daughter, I said, she can say that. And I said, the reason why we're in Jerusalem today is not because of anti-Semitism. It's not because of persecution. It's not because of the Holocaust. It's because this is where we've been for thousands of years. You could literally see the writing on the stones, read the writing, the coins, the seals, the inscriptions that are being pulled out of the ground on a regular basis in the city of David show that our shared heritage in Jerusalem, yours and mine, is not simply a matter of faith, but a matter of fact. It's real. You could see it. You could touch it. You could walk on it. And God willing, really please God, let it be soon that we will all be able to get together again in Jerusalem. And it would be my greatest honor and privilege to be able to share some of the discoveries that we spoke about today and the countless more that literally are bringing the Bible to life on a daily basis here in the city of David and throughout the rest of Jerusalem and of Israel. And I look forward to seeing you here soon. And if anyone has any questions, I'm obviously happy to do my best to answer those as well.
So we do have a few questions here, and so I'm going to try to get to most of them. Some of them for Ze'ev and some for Yael. So or Eyal, either of you from Israeli Ministry of Tourism. But the first question is from David Guzek. He asks, when will the Pilgrims Road be open to the public to tour?
Please God, in the next 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
That said, here's what I can tell you. If NRB says, hey, we're bringing a special VIP group, we would love to see the Pilgrimage Road. Same goes for Ministry of Tourism. We won't say no to you. So it's not something that we could open up to the millions of people who will want to see it right now, because then we can't excavate it. But if you ever come and say to us, listen, we have a special group, we need to see it, we'll make sure that you guys can get a sneak peek.
And then we have a couple questions here, and I think this is something we can answer. They asked, is it possible to obtain a recording or the pictures shared in the presentation? So I think we can, we're recording this, so I do think we'll be able to make it available to NRB members. Perhaps we can mail it out to everyone who registered, perhaps, if that's okay with you. And then obviously the pictures will be in the presentation. Is there another place or website, Ze'ev, that you would point people to where you could see some of these pictures?
If you go to our website, you could cityofdavid.org.il/en for English. You can go there. If you go to our YouTube channel, we have little short videos about all these different discoveries. You can get more stuff there. And if anyone wants to email me, I'm happy to be helpful as well. Okay,
that's great. And maybe we can post that in the chat here, some of those links. That'd be great if someone would like to do that. Let's see here. This is probably for Zav, maybe for Zav, but maybe for either Sebastian or Ayel. Do you, Gordon
there's-
Govier asks, do I understand that you do not expect international visitors before Passover?
All right. So, then I'll just say this, and also a few other questions that have to do with the travel. We're not sure. It might be before, but if we're following the trends globally and from our communication with the airlines and how they're prepared, and also our Ministry of Health has been one of the more proactive ones in the world. Actually, we are. I think we were one of the first to close our borders. We're one of the first to go into a second. A second form of a lockdown, also to make sure that the numbers are low. Our numbers are definitely low compared to, if you look at any state in the U.S., we're far below, but our authorities are very proactive and want to make sure that everything is safe.
Mm-hmm.
So things could be earlier, but I think it is a safe estimate to look at Passover as a beginning. Obviously we said we would update if there's any change, and we are introducing smaller formats of travel right now for business travel, and we'll see how it goes with that. In terms of group size, the tour operators in Israel are some of the top professional tour operators in the world, and they're implementing their own measures to ensure group travel that can work. It's going to be, if you're coming as a bigger group, that would mean that you'll have more buses, because you'll have instead of being 45 people on the bus, you'll be 25 people on the bus. So you'll be traveling in a different way, and maybe your itinerary might be affected in terms of you'd have to consider spending more time in going into a site and then appreciating it and letting everybody see it, and you won't have to be crowded. But the good thing about most of the sites in Israel, especially for faith-based travel, is that they are outdoors. And so the limitations of having small groups of people in a closed space don't apply to most of the sites in Israel that are for faith-based travel. And so obviously there will be an impact, but it won't be, what we estimate is that it won't be to that extreme, that bigger group travel still will be possible and can be run. So, and then, about plan to travel in May 2021, we're very hopeful that will be the case. And just know that the airlines and also the tour operators and hotels in Israel all know how to accommodate you if you are booking, and we do encourage people to book on changes that have to be made if there's something that will be that. Definitely the service orientation is to work with you to make sure that you have a great experience, and if it needs to move, they'll move it for you. But May 2021, our work assumption is that May 2021 will already be okay.
That's good. Now we have for Zav, we have several questions about the Pilgrim Road and the City of David. So first of all, someone here, and I need to find this question, asked if he could hold up that coin again. I guess that
Sure.
coin was the star of the show today. There it is. That's pretty awesome.
Right. I'll show you something else. If we're already here, before you ask the question, just for doing show and tell, I'll show you two things, other things. One, this is a Babylonian arrowhead, 2,500 years old.
Wow.
If you think of the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem, these were the arrows that were being shot at the defenders of Jerusalem. This is actual, not a replica. And going back to the Pilgrims Road for a second, tell me, what color do you see here? What does that look like? Black.
Yeah.
Black, right? This is ash that I took the other, oh, I'm not saying that, never mind. This is ash that is from the Pilgrimage Road, going back to the fires that destroyed Jerusalem in the year 70. It's actual literal ash from the fires that the archaeologists have discovered in the excavation of the Pilgrimage Road. So again, it's when you think of all these things, there were real people minting real coins, real soldiers using real weapons, real burning, and it's all there to see and to touch and to experience. So on that note, you could ask the question. I just wanted to share that with you.
So some more questions about the Pilgrimage Road. And by the way, if you're comfortable, I don't know if you are, Zab, but I think you mentioned before, putting your email in the chat. If not, we can
Yeah.
have other ways to contact you. But some questions about the Pilgrims Road. First of all, how far up the Pilgrims Road was the Podium found? I
It's
got
about
a couple
halfway.
questions
About
on that.
halfway up between the Pool of Siloam and the Temple Mount.
Okay.
And again, our belief is we'll probably find more podiums as we progress in the excavations. But so far, that's what we found.
Okay. And then let me see here. A couple more questions about. Someone asked, does the Pilgrim Road also go back up to the city of David?
I mean, it runs through the city of David, meaning as you're walking, the Pool of Siloam is in the city of David. The entire length of the Pilgrimage Road is running through the city of David until it comes out by right before the Temple Mount. So you are in the city of David when you're walking on the Pilgrimage Road. We finished 2019 with about 1 million visitors that came to the city of David. Our belief is that once we finish the Pilgrimage Road excavation, if we just say for a moment, there are about 2.3 billion Christians in the world, and some Jews, but 2.3 billion Christians. If you said for 10% of them, 230 million people who say, I need to literally walk in the footsteps of where Jesus walked. There are not a ton of places you could say with absolute certainty, this is where it happened. This half-mile stretch from the Pool of Siloam up through the Pilgrimage Road in the city of David to the southern steps, I mean, it's all 100%. And so we're anticipating, in the next 5 to 10 years, having millions and many millions coming through. And Jerusalem is already, from an infrastructure perspective, already putting plans in place to accommodate the many millions who we anticipate are going to be coming through to literally walk in the footsteps of the Bible.
That's cool. And so I'm curious, when the Pilgrims Road project is finished, where will you get on? Like say you're taking a typical tour, like where will you enter that, and where will it take you?
So one idea, and this is still conceptually being worked out. One idea is you'll start at the Pool of Siloam at the southern end of the city of David, and literally walk all the way up, culminating at the western wall or the southern steps. Another option could be it's almost like a freeway, and you might get on somewhere in the middle. You might go visit First Temple period in the city of David, maybe King David's palace, Hezekiah's tunnel, and then kind of pick up the Pilgrimage Road somewhere else. But the incredible thing that if you think about two of the most visited sites in Jerusalem are Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust memorial, and the Western Wall, which is in a sense symbolizes the destruction of Jerusalem from 2,000 years ago. Once the Pilgrimage Road is complete, the Western Wall is going to have a 180-degree shift, because it's going to go from being a symbol of the destruction of Jerusalem to now being the culmination of the pilgrimage experience and the revitalization of what the pilgrimage experience was like in Jerusalem thousands of years ago. So you're going to come up from the Pool of Siloam, up through the city of David along the Pilgrimage Road, come out by the Western Wall with the shops lining the whole Pilgrimage Road, and it'll almost be like a celebration of walking in the footsteps of your ancestors and experiencing Jerusalem in the way that they would have. And therefore, the Western Wall won't just be a symbol of sadness, but it'll be one of inspiration, of the magic and energy that was in Jerusalem and is returning to Jerusalem today in a very special way.
So a couple more questions, and then these have been great, by the way, and this has just been a fantastic presentation. As someone who's been to Israel several times, I'm finding it just amazing, and can't wait to get back there. And I hope it's been great for everyone who has been so kind to join us. Shemaine Chan has a couple questions about the pool. She said, I've been to the Siloam pool. It looks like there are 2 sets of steps. She asked, which one would the priest take when going up to the Temple Mount? And then she has a follow-up question. Were these steps only used for festive processions, or were they used for daily life activities as well?
Okay, excellent. First question, the priests almost certainly would not have immersed in the Pool of Siloam. If you visited Jerusalem in the area of the Temple Mount, the Western Wall, there are you can call them almost more exclusive ritual baths closer to the Temple Mount. Almost certainly, number one, the priests, number two, the wealthy, they would have gone to the more exclusive ones closer to the Temple Mount. The Pool of Siloam was for the masses. It was for the, the place where pretty much all the regular people were going. One of the reasons for that, as far as the priests go, is from the time you go into the ritual bath until you get up to the temple, you can't become impure. If you become impure, it's like you got to go back and do the whole thing all over again. Now, what that would have meant is the pilgrimage road would have had to be wide enough that you would have had, let's say, half the road for people going down to the pool with some type of divider in the middle, and then the other side going up would have been for people who have already immersed in purity. But the priest almost certainly wouldn't have wanted to take that half-mile journey and chance becoming impure, so they would have immersed closer to the Temple Mount. As far as the second question, the pool would have been open year-round. The pilgrimage road would have been open year-round. While there were the pilgrimage festivals, which was, let's call it, in the words of the Ministry of Tourism, peak travel season, the temple was open 365 days a year. And if somebody wanted to visit the temple, not on Passover, not on Tabernacles, not on Pentecost, you could still visit the temple. You would still need to immerse and purify and all that. And so it was just like Israel's open the whole year, and we're happy for people to visit the entire year. There are certain times a year which get more people, and the rest of the year it's off peak, but it was always functioning, always open. Yeah.
That's really good. Well, thank you, Zayav, for that. And I think we've answered most everyone's questions, and thank you for the great questions. And we had people engaged on here from New Jersey, from Pennsylvania, from Illinois, from Toronto, from around the United States, around the world. And this has been fantastic. We're really excited for when people will be able to start traveling to Israel again, and specifically the city of David. Again, we want to encourage all of you to check out the website for the city of David that we have in the link here. We'll send an email to everyone who registered for this with the link to the full thing that you can see it, and with some other links for other information. And just want to encourage everyone to again consider coming to NRB in March 16th to 18th in Texas at the Gaylord Texan, and you can meet our friends from the Israeli Ministry of Tourism there. I'm going to give Sebastian just maybe a final word if you want to kind of close this out with any final instructions or any thoughts.
Well, thank you all for joining us. This has been really great. Thank you, NRB, for hosting us. Thank you, Zev. That was awesome. I was just on the edge of my seat here. Thank you all. Thank you for Eyal for the update from Israel. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to contact our offices. We have offices in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and Atlanta, and Toronto as well. So please contact the Israel Ministry of Tourism. I don't know, Eyal or Yael, would you guys like to say anything else before we go? Yael or Eyal? Yael is our Southern region, the regional director in Atlanta.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much of everyone's time, but Zev, I'll just say that I got the chance to visit the Pilgrimage Road as it was just starting, seeing it being excavated. And like you said, it's just a phenomenal place that takes everyone, regardless of religion, in awe of the history that's behind it. So I do urge, when we travel back to Israel, it's a must see.
Definitely. All right, guys. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Dan.
Happy Thanksgiving to all of y'all, and thank you all for joining us. And with that, we will close out this webinar.